precursor, but the Polynesians found much of it. The islands of Polynesia, not unified politically, but closely related culturally and linguistically, eventually formed a triangle in the Pacific, with points marked by Rapa Nui, Easter Island, to the east, Aotearoa, New Zealand, to the west, and way up north, Hawaii, among the most isolated archipelagos on the planet, with no further land for 2,400 miles to the east, and more than twice that to the west. It is difficult to overstate the immensity of this accomplishment. On the grandest scale, the establishment of Polynesia was but part of the larger Austronesian conquest of the planet. Austronesian languages spread west nearly as far as Africa, and east to within a few miles of the Americas. But the establishment of Polynesia was the last great pre-modern human migration. In seafaring and navigational terms, while the Europeans were discovering fire, the Polynesians had already split the atom. They crossed the ocean in canoes roughly 60 feet long, built from hollowed-out trees, with sails made from woven leaves. To avoid capsizing from the awesome power of the wind on the sails, the Polynesians made their longest trips in double canoes, joining two hulls to create a catamaran-style vessel with a width of about 20 feet. The wind came primarily from the east, meaning migrants sailed directly into headwinds, like moving through an atmospheric wall of tar. And yet, with no compass, sextant, or any other modern navigational aid, explorers in canoes found tiny oases scattered across 1/3 of the planet, an expanse nearly as vast as Europe and Asia combined. For at least a century after this migration was completed, European navigators were still wary of sailing their ships beyond the Strait of Gibraltar into the Atlantic Ocean. How did they do it? A lot of trial and error, of course, with much human sacrifice. During the 2 millennia the Polynesian migration was underway, as many as 500,000 souls were lost at sea. In their double outrigger canoes, they spread across thousands of miles of ocean, through overpowering waves, swells, currents, and storms. Everything in their physical environment was poised to work against them, but they conquered it. This was no random quest. Computer modeling of currents and atmospheric conditions has demonstrated the extreme unlikelihood that explorers discovered islands through uncontrolled drift. Their ability to know where they were and where they were going across a seemingly faceless ocean is baffling. A Polynesian navigator would have several tools at his disposal to set a course for travel. Chief among these was a sidereal compass, a complex ingrained mental image of the stars. Beginning in childhood, the future navigator would spend years honing the ability to gather clues from the environment while out on the ocean. Over the centuries, these methods would be combined with a growing knowledge of the placement of islands as the migration spread further. But this young navigator would also have something else, something that eludes simple description. Call it a worldview. Its intricacies remain a subject of fascination today, and we are still piecing together its components. The most celebrated European explorer of the Pacific could not understand the map of the world Polynesian navigators had in their heads, even when he had the good fortune to meet someone willing to sketch its contours. In the early 16th century, Ferdinand Magellan completed his historic voyage across the Pacific Ocean. For the next 200 years, European ship captains considered the Pacific to be, at best, a distance to be traversed on the way to somewhere else. That began to change in the mid-18th century. Expeditions became prestige operations, underwritten by governments interested in exploration for its own sake, and convinced that knowledge of the location of remote islands could offer advantages, both commercial and geopolitical. The conception of the ocean as empty space was replaced by something mysterious, unwieldy, a watery other that mocked attempts to understand it. The Pacific no longer appeared as it had done to Magellan a desert waste, the scientist Alexander von Humboldt noted from the vantage point of the mid-19th century. Instead, it was now animated by islands, which, however, for want of exact astronomical observations, appeared to have no fixed position, but floated from place to place over the charts.